Welcome to Champagne Problems Podcast. I am your host, Robbie Shaw. Join us as we explore mental and emotional well-being, physical optimization, and the journey to discovering your highest self. Champagne Problems is brought to you in proud partnership with Bond Buzz, the alcohol-free social spirit. Bond Buzz is an award-winning alcohol-free functional beverage company creating adult drinks that are health-forward, all-natural, and uncompromising. They're on a mission to create a future where feeling good and getting buzzed exist in absolute harmony and not at the expense of your health. Their bold concoctions offer focus and energy while calming the nervous system for a night on the town or a productive afternoon. Bond Buzz uses only natural ingredients and a hyperfunctional blend of nootropics, adaptogens, and functional mushrooms to amplify the sensory experience. If you're looking for a drink to help you cool off after work or a drink to stimulate your mind and body without the harmful, icky hangovers, drink Bond Buzz for good days only. Coach Matt Doherty, welcome to Champagne Problems.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
It's great to have you here. I typically start with how I know my guest, and often I don't know my guests, and you and I somewhat know each other. We've crossed paths a time or two in the past, but we had more recently, Whitley Atkins introduce us and say, you guys need to know each other, y'all need to talk. And we went from there. You had me on your podcast, which I really appreciate the Rebound podcast, and now we're here.
Yeah. Well, Whitley's great. She's a great connector.
Yeah.
Great lover of Charlotte and great lover of all things Carolina.
She is.
UNC.
Big time.
UNC.
Yeah.
Got to clarify that.
You do have down here.
Yes.
Down here. So I'm excited. We're continuing to make magic.
Hopefully so.
Yeah. Well, we're going to right here because I like to do a rapid fire question.
Okay.
Keep you on your toes. What was your first live music concert and where?
Yeah, Jethro Tull, Nassau Coliseum, opened up by Molly Hatchet. That was probably in 1977-ish. Yeah, like 9th grade, 10th grade probably.
Where was Nassau?
Nassau Coliseum is right outside. It's right where I grew up, South Shore of Long Island.
Yeah.
It's where the New York Islanders played for the longest time. Now they're playing in Belmont Arena, I think it's called.
Got it.
But, yeah, about 30 miles outside of New York City.
Love it. Love it. Where's your favorite vacation spot?
Good question. Favorite vacation spot? My back deck. Every night.
Right here.
I go after dinner, go out, smoke a cigar, and catch up on emails, prepare my next day. That's my mini vacation every day. And, you know, other than that, I don't know if I have a favorite spot. I do.
You travel much?
Yeah, decent amount.
You saltwater or mountain guy?
Yes.
A little both.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beautiful thing about the Carolinas.
Right.
I mean,
two
I love
and a half hours either way.
And, you know, if I had to choose, at the end of the day, I'd probably choose the mountains because you get a view of the mountains wherever you are in the mountains, where at the beach you only get a view if you're on the beach. Right. I'm a pretty fundamental, practical guy.
Yeah,
and
intentional.
And then as you get a little older, like the hot weather.
Understood.
Yeah, I could always put a sweater on or a jacket up in the mountains.
Yep. If you're cold, you can get warm.
Right.
If you're warm, it's hard to get cold.
Right.
Understood. Do you read much?
Yeah, I love to read.
What book are you reading now?
Yeah, good question. Blackout. Is by I listen to books.
Yep.
Because I'm in the car all the time, so I like to make use of. By Candace Owens. Blackout. I've been reading a really good book recently. Was While Time Remains by Yeonmi Park.
Okay.
She grew up in North Korea and defected, ended up in New York City. And so lately, I've been on WBT with Brett Winterbull for at least 4 years. And so I've become more interested in politics.
Yeah.
And, you know, I shouldn't say politics, just more about society. You know, in our country, and where is it heading as I get older and my kids are, you know, getting older. And So I'm very interested in reading about history
Yeah.
and, you know, our country, where's it heading, and the seeds that have been planted in our country. And, you know, she comes from North Korea, a communist regime,
Right.
and is recognizing the seeds of communism in our country.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just like to try to, I know this is not a political show, but I like to
No,
wait.
it's not.
I like to learn and,
Yeah,
and,
yeah, yeah.
and grow and open my mind to the things that are around us. So I do like to read. I hated to read as a kid,
Yeah.
but you know, I'd read about basketball books like
Yeah.
Pete Maravich and Bill Bradley were two impactful books in my life as a kid. But as I've gotten older and more passionate about leadership and growth, then I just get thirsty for good books.
Yeah. Well, it is a conversational show. It's not a political show, but I do love the yearning for information when it relates to people in general. And I know you said society and kind of kept it more in our country. I tend to think more on a human level. And it's interesting because you said it, as I get older. And that's definitely something for me too. And I remember being a kid watching my parents interested in all this historical
Right.
crap.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And as I get older, that's all I want to know is
Right.
like, where did we come from? What's our purpose? You know,
That's right.
all that stuff. And it's just fascinating.
Yeah, it is. And I think my kids are more educated on history, politics, current events than I was at their age.
Yeah.
Because, you know, so readily
Access.
available
Yep.
on their phones. And a lot of people get, and that's the good and the bad, right? You have
Sure.
access, but the access can be
It's not always
controlled
viable, right.
by certain people. And
Yeah, we
that
know.
goes back to, you know,
Politics.
politics.
All right, let's move on. This one's a little silly. What's your favorite smell?
My favorite smell is a pair of leather.
Men's locker room?
You, on this podcast, you ask and answer the
Yeah,
questions.
yeah. Sorry,
Robbie? Okay.
sorry. I'll answer for you to make it fun. No, my apologies.
Probably the smell of a leather basketball shoe. Yeah.
Maybe a little Converse or something like that?
Yeah. Well, back in the day, Converse, but nothing like like I think back when now you asked that question. I had a paper route in grammar school, and I saved money to buy sneakers for camp. And this one summer, I thought I was going to a camp, a sleepaway camp, and thought the courts were going to be wood indoors, but the court was actually cement indoors. And
Cement indoors.
yes.
Got
You know, and so I didn't wear these Adidas Pro models. It was the first time I bought a pair of Adidas Pro models
Didn't wanna
from
scuff 'em.
Athlete's Foot, so I didn't wear them there.
I love it.
But I remember as I was getting ready for the camp, I had them in my closet, and I would take them out once in a while, just look at them and
Smell them.
smell that shoe.
It's like a new car.
Oh,
That's awesome.
yeah.
I love that. All right, if you could know, last one, if you could know the answer to any question, what would you ask?
Will I make it to heaven?
Of course you will.
I'd like to think so, but I'd like to know for sure.
You'd like to know the answer.
Yeah.
Got it. All right, let's do a quick early life bio, kind of pre-Carolina. I know you mentioned you grew up on Long Island?
Yeah.
All right, whereabouts?
Yeah, I
What
grew up,
was that like?
in East Meadow, New York, which is 30 minutes from New York City. 30, I should say miles, because it could be 2 hours. It could
Right,
be
right.
30 minutes, depending on the time of day. My dad was from Brooklyn. My mom was from the Bronx. I have 3 older sisters, a younger brother, Irish Catholic. My dad owned a Pepsi route. He'd go into the city every day, probably out the door by 6 o'clock, no matter the weather. I went to St. Raphael's Grammar School, Holy Trinity High School, altar boy. I came home, I think it was probably 2nd grade, and said to my mom that I wanted to be an altar boy, and she's like thinking, oh, my son is going to be a priest. Like, you know, like back then, every Irish Catholic family had to have like a cop and a priest.
Right.
And so And I said that to my mother, and she had this look on her face, and I quickly said, yeah, altar boys get paid for weddings and funerals. And it just ruined it for
Wait
her.
a minute.
And so, so 3 older sisters, younger brother, St. Raphael's Grammar School, CYO, Nassau County champs in 8th grade, played for Bob McKillop, who was the head coach at Davidson in high school.
I did not know
for
that.
2 years, and then Dick Zeitler, state champs, and was blessed to be highly recruited.
Yeah. I did not know you played for Bob McKillop. I was doing a little research. Obviously, I know you went and helped coach with him, and I went to his sports camp years ago. You know, I mean, I love that guy.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I did not know he started up there.
Yeah, I was blessed as a kid, you know. You don't realize it at the time until you have a bad coach.
Right.
How good the coaches were that you had. And growing up, my dad, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. My dad was a minor league baseball player who played minor league baseball in the Carolinas. He would talk about Gastonia, and he would talk about Greenville, and he would talk about Spartanburg. And if he had pitched a winning game, he got a $25 bonus so he could call my mother, who was his girlfriend at the time, back in New York. And so, you know, where I grew up, there were a lot of first-generation New York City people. And, you know, the coaches I had, like the Coleman brothers in 7th and 8th grade. The camps I went to.
Derek?
Who? Tom Ed Coleman.
Got it.
And
That's the only Coleman I know.
Yeah, I know. God bless you. You act like you're old, man. How old are you? Like 25?
I'm not old.
Yeah.
So, I'm 47.
47?
Yeah.
Wow, you are old.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So the Coleman brothers, Bob McKillop, Dick Zeitler, the camp coaches I had, Reverend Ed Vischer, Gus Alfieri, these were great coaches. And then I go play for Dean Smith at North Carolina. And then I worked for Bob McKillop at Davidson. I worked for Roy Williams. Then I become a head coach. So I was just so blessed to be surrounded as a young boy to young man with great coaches.
Yeah.
And that's why I got into coaching.
Yeah.
I tried to make the NBA. I thought I was going to play in the NBA. That was a dream of mine as a young boy. And after I finished at North Carolina, you know, my teammates, Michael Jordan was drafted 3rd, Sam Perkins was 4th, I think, or 5th in the draft. And then I thought I'd be drafted maybe in the 2nd round, and I was drafted in the 6th round. Mm-hmm. It was one of the worst days of my life.
Oh, man.
And ended up going to the Cleveland Cavaliers to try out, got cut. George Karl, former Carolina player, was the head coach at the time. And I was just really lost. And I always thought Wall Street would be a cool backup because a guy named Tommy Kearns, I keep pointing this, there's that book there,
yeah.
the Tar Heel book, started on a 57 national championship team and had great success on Wall Street. And I thought that would be a cool substitute when my basketball career was over. And it just ended quicker than I thought. So I went to Wall Street and thinking I'd get rich and chasing money would be fulfilling, and it wasn't. I found fulfillment.
Surprise.
I found fulfillment in 6-packs and brown water.
We'll get to that.
I know we will.
Well, thanks for sharing all that. I do want to go back to, because I have to, 1982.
Yeah.
Obviously recruited to Carolina, and was that your junior year that you won?
That was my sophomore year.
Sophomore year, you win the national championship.
Yeah, I won it all by myself.
Yep, you did. I saw it. So front cover of Sports Illustrated, you, Big Game James, Big Smooth, and Jimmy Black.
Right. And Dean Smith.
And Dean Smith.
I remember where I was sitting when I first saw the cover. You know, we took like 5 hours standing there in Fetzer Gym taking the pictures for the front cover of Sports Illustrated. That was coming out November 1st. So, I don't know, this was September, October. And it was, you know, kind of after a while, it's like you're standing for 5 hours. It's kind of painful.
Get the shot.
And, you know, these guys are supposed to be good photographers. So it shouldn't take that long. I could do it on my smartphone in like 2 takes. And I'm sitting on the wall between the undergraduate library. You know, we're right by Haynes Hall, I believe it is.
Oh yeah,
And that was good traffic because you get to see all the
definitely.
you get to see all the girls walk by,
Yeah.
right? And you act like you're reading the Daily Tar Heel, but you're really just like
3 hours. Yeah.
And so all of a sudden somebody comes up and says, "Hey Matt, look." And he showed me the cover of Sports Illustrated. And I remember looking at him like, "Where'd you get this? Like, this is fake."
Yeah. Who made this?
Because, you know, Sports Illustrated as a kid, like I couldn't wait to get Sports
Classic.
Illustrated.
Yeah.
And all the great players there on the front cover. And now I'm on the front cover of freaking Sports Illustrated. That was cool.
I cannot.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. That blows my mind. And then to think, so y'all were preseason number 1.
That's right.
So they were looking at you all, knowing that it was happening. Plus, you had Michael Jordan as a freshman, but they didn't know he was going to be as good as he was.
Right. And Coach Smith didn't put him on the front cover
not being on the cover.
intentionally because he had not played a game yet.
Yeah.
And Coach was all about upperclassmen. You have
Always.
to earn your stripes.
Yep.
But we went to the national championship game the year before.
Yep.
So we had 3 returning starters: Jimmy Black, Sam Perkins, and James Worthy, and I was a 6th man. So, you know, we knew we were going to be good. We expected to be good.
Mm-hmm.
And then we lost a great player in Al Wood, who was an All-American wing, and then Michael came in and kind of filled that void pretty well.
Man, I wish I was older when that was happening. I was very young then. I do remember it, but I was young. But my dad remembers it very well. So you were on 2 Sports Illustrated covers, if not more.
Actually, I've been on 3, maybe 4. 4th, you really can't see me. It's one of those like collages they do. And
Yeah. 500 people.
But most of the time, like I knew my role. And whenever a Sports Illustrated photographer was taking pictures of our games, I always got behind Michael Jordan. You know, Michael and I'm in the background. Like, there he is. So, yeah, I was intentionally on the front cover of 1, background on at least 2.
That's so cool. Oh, that's so cool. All right, so you win the national championship as a sophomore, and you fulfill your career at Carolina through your senior year.
Yeah.
What does winning a national championship as a sophomore do for your confidence? Or ego?
Yeah, probably ego.
Right.
You know, I think ego and confidence are 2 different things.
They are.
And so, yeah, you know, you're on top of the world. You come back, and we were riding on top of the bus going down Franklin Street. And, you know, we pulled into Kenan Stadium, and there were 25,000 people on one side of the stands. We landed at the airport, and the whole way from the airport to Chapel Hill, the roads were lined with people. And I think that I probably didn't, you know, I appreciated it then, but I probably look back now and, you know, when you see how people react to some of these athletes, you're like, that's how they reacted to me and my teammates.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, that's kind of weird in a way.
You're heroes.
Yeah, but you're also 20.
Right.
You're kids. You're stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, how do you handle that? And so, you know, then we had Coach Smith, and, you know, he's good. He's good. He's good at, you know, coaches like build you up when you're down and then
level you when you're up.
Yeah, smack you down when you're too. Right. So so, you know, we win the championship, and, you know, we all kind of took a week off from class, and I remember getting a letter after spring semester, went to my home, to my parents. And I remember in the dining room, my parents looking at me like, we just got a letter from Coach Smith, and your grade point average was whatever, let's say, I don't know, 2.5 or something.
Yeah. Lower.
I graduated with 3.0, but like, you know, in business, a good
had
major, and playing basketball, had a little dip. And they're reading this, they're looking at me, but I'm saying to myself,
just won a national championship.
Come on, man. Like, come on, coach. Give me a break.
Yeah.
And like, I took it, but like, whatever. You know, like if I could roll my eyes back then, I would have rolled my eyes. Mm-hmm. But I was like, okay, yeah, got it.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, coach. And but that's good coaching. He's
Yeah.
a good teacher.
Yeah.
And
Proud of you, but back to work.
yeah, like you got to be able, as a student athlete, you got to be able to juggle both. The student athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's changed a lot over the years, but
Yeah.
back then, and I wanted that. Like I wanted to be viewed as a true student athlete. Like I took pride in. I cut 2 classes in my college career on purpose. Like the other ones, you miss class because of travel, but I purposely missed 2 classes. I like to go to class, and I'm big on like control what you can control.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could control going to class. I can control where I sat in class. I can control my interaction with the professor. I may not be able to control, how smart I am and how I retain, whether it's calculus or business law or whatever, the marketing class. But I'm all about controlling what you can control, and I did not like to miss class.
That's where you and I differ. All right, so thank you for that. That was I could do that for another hour, but let's move forward. So I'd love to do, and I know we already mentioned this, but I'd love to kind of break this next part of the conversation up into 3 parts.
Okay.
And discuss maybe, like I said, I've read your book, and our listeners may have, may haven't, but I would love
What
to.
is the title of the book? Rebound from Pain to Passion.
I got it right here. Let's
these people
let's
up.
plug it. Let's plug it. Rebound from Pain to Passion,
That's right.
and then there's a subtitle, right?
Leadership lessons learned.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
Rebound from
Check
Pain
it out.
to Passion.
It's fabulous. This guy's got a journey over here. So let's do maybe 3 pivotal moments that stand out in early life after college, midlife, and then more recent.
Yeah, sure.
So let's
That's
do
so
early.
easy.
Yeah.
Early life. About 1988, summer, July. Woke up in Manahawkin, New Jersey, on a porch.
Is that near the beach?
Yeah.
Manahawkin.
On a porch of a house that I wasn't staying at.
Got it.
Woke up, didn't know where I was. Went to open the door, it was locked. And this is not like it was 6 a.m. Like I slept in.
Yeah, you had a great night's sleep.
And I was scared.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have cell phones back then. So I just started to walk. I didn't know where I was. And finally found the house that I was staying at with a bunch of guys from New York City. And, guys would rent houses and invite friends. And I, next week, we laughed about it. Ha, 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 funny. We were drinking Planter's Punch that night before, which is like, I don't know, 4 alcohols. And so we jokingly called it Porch Punch. Since I woke up on the porch.
To a porch, right?
Ha, 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 funny.
Yeah, you're an animal.
That's funny when you're, maybe 17, 18, 19, 20. But when you're 20, 6, 25, not so funny.
Mm-hmm.
At least for me. It scared me. And I say your life's impacted by 3 things: the people you meet, the books you read, and the trauma in your life. And that was traumatic. And I needed that.
Yeah.
So I went to a counselor on my own the next week on the west side of Manhattan. I lived on 96 and Broadway. And so I met with this lady, and she had me fill out this, questionnaire. I don't know, 10 questions. And she reads them, and she looks at me, and she goes, you have the symptoms of a chronic alcoholic. And so the first thing goes through my mind is, so you're not calling me an alcoholic. It's like Dumb and Dumber.
Just showing some symptoms.
So you're saying I have a chance.
Right.
Symptoms, like put a Band-Aid on that. I'm not an alcoholic.
Go away.
Symptoms. So I'm like, but I, obviously I got the point.
Yeah.
And I remember walking out of her apartment down the street, feeling dirty, like a failure. And then I went to AA for, I don't know how long, week, month. I'd already planned to move to Charlotte because I wanted to leave New York. I didn't like selling bonds. I thought I'd move here and get in the real estate business. And so that was 35 years ago, 36 years ago. I'm blessed. Like people ask, and I've only in the last 5 years probably come out and talked about it publicly, because I was afraid back then to talk about it publicly because I thought it might hurt me from getting a job.
Sure.
And
Could have.
And it was amazing because 11 years from that time, I became the head coach at Notre Dame. And so I was miserable. I was unhappy. I was finding fulfillment in drinking. I wasn't fulfilled in my career. I wasn't fulfilled in chasing money. I missed my identity as a basketball player. I had lost that.
Yeah.
And so I found my identity in drinking, and made me feel good. Mm-hmm. It made the bad stuff go away. And I was a good drinker now. I mean, I like when I do things, I like to win championships.
Succeed, yeah.
Yeah, and I was first team all city drinker.
Putting up some numbers.
Yeah. I represented the Upper West Side.
Yeah.
And I took podium many a night. I was podium. Yeah.
Well, I want to ask that. So, you know, you share about the one night, the traumatic or morning that you woke up. I mean, is it in your head leading up to that? I mean, are there other nights that stand out as, oh, shit?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Yes.
So this one was more of just a compounding, like, all right, I got to do something.
Yeah, sure. You could talk your way out of, you could talk and think your way out of another experience. Oh, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Not that bad. Yeah. Everyone else is doing it. Mm-hmm. You know? Mm-hmm. I mean, it was like a thing. Like you'd wake up in New York City, it was every night.
80s.
Every night. I mean, so I'd be at work miserable. 10 o'clock, I'd call my buddy and I'd say, man, I'm in the weeds. How you doing? Weeds. I'm never going to drink again. 4 o'clock.
Where are we going?
How you feeling? Feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
Where are you going? And you're out again till 2, 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
And so, and finally you realize, like, this is not the way I want to continue to live my life.
Yeah. How old were you when you made that decision?
Yeah, I think I was 26.
So, and I know you and I have had this conversation on your podcast, but I was 29 and I spent 3 years in New York City, and I worked at a bond brokerage, and I did the same thing and fizzled and burned out and then quit.
Yeah.
Very similar story.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, the thing about New York City is, it's part of the culture.
Yes.
The entertainment. You have, back then, you had, the credit cards, the accounts, and you had car services. Before Uber, you had these little, vouchers that were like money, like gold. You get a couple of those, man, you go wherever you want.
Oh, my God.
And, so you had access, and you had New York City. Nothing closed down.
Did you ever go to Studio 54?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
Studio 54 area, Limelight.
Love it.
Oh, yeah.
Did your success in the college space lead to more of a extravagant lifestyle in New York City?
Probably because, you had access, you had friends, you had some notoriety that lasted a little bit. You could get into clubs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bouncers at clubs were former athletes, right?
Yo.
So you'd go to Studio 54, the guy there, big blonde guy, played basketball at like some small Division I school. So like recognize you, boom, come on. And then I'd go to the Limelight. Barry Rorson, whose nickname is Slice, was the bouncer. He and I were in basketball camp together in 1977, and he played at Xavier with Chris Mullen in high school. So Slice ended up being an assistant coach at Kentucky for John Calipari. So there was a lot of sports, involvement in terms of the bar scene, the nightlife in New York, especially the bouncers. They were all big guys.
Yeah.
And they see another big guy come up. Hey, you played North.
Excuse me, everybody.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. All right.
Yeah.
Well, again, I could go for an hour on that one, but all right. So let's move into. So you have a traumatic experience. You get sober, and you've stayed sober since, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
God bless that, because I know some people that struggle with it and fall off the wagon. And I've been blessed to not be tempted to drink.
Well, and then you automatically seem to start seeing some more success in a different direction, but also back into the area that you live so much of your life passionate about.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. A couple things. One, I'm an executive coach now, and when I talk to people, the great thing, and Dean Smith used to say this, to be a teacher is to be a student all over again, because you are forced to read and study your subject matter so you can teach it well. Well, that only makes you better in the subject matter. You truly become a subject matter expert. So I think one of the things that I, as a coach, talk a lot about is, what is your purpose? As I read, I talk about, again, the three things that impact your lives: the books you read, the people you meet, and the trauma in your life. When you talk about what's your purpose, well, what is your purpose? What are you genetically encoded to do? What did God put you on this earth to do? And I believe for me, it is to teach and coach. It's just not basketball now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so being on your show, being an executive coach, doing keynote talks, my mission then, what is your mission? Your purpose is different than your mission. So my mission is to make a positive impact on the people I meet and the groups I work with while dropping breadcrumbs to the Lord. So if I understand that, then there's fulfillment, and you're not chasing these other shiny objects like money or fame or fortune. And if you're really good at what your purpose is, and you are good at going after your mission, then you get that fulfillment. And God gives everyone some unique gifts, and our gift back to Him is to utilize those gifts.
That's powerful. All right, so then so assistant coach at Davidson, and before Notre Dame, Kansas.
That's right.
Or is there anything in between?
No. So I moved to Charlotte thinking I was getting in the real estate business, because I still was chasing the money. Right.
Right. Well, you got to pay the bills.
And so then I took a job from Ed Sockwell, Sockwell and Anderson.
Super close family friends.
So
Sonics.
Yeah, Sonics, who ironically is Luke May, Drake May's grandfather. Now deceased.
Yep.
So he had a search firm, and he said, "Hey, would you want to work, part-time in my search firm?" Sure. It's recruiting. I enjoyed it. Matter of fact, he offered me a full-time job, but I was on this other track. But he had an AAU team, the Charlotte Sonics. I got to coach the team. Two players. One was Thad Bonaparte, who does some media locally.
Went to my high school.
And West Charlotte.
Yeah. Back-to-back state champs.
Yeah.
Old Thad.
Yeah. And Jeff McGinnis.
Oh, yeah.
Who played at North Carolina. Touche. 8th graders.
Love it.
And Charles Waddell, who was a four sport athlete at North Carolina, was on, he and I were the coaches. And that's when I fell in love with coaching. I avoided coaching for some reason, but then once I did that, I was like, wow, this is like cool. Like, I love this. Like, I love planning practice. I love picking up the kids. I love dropping them off. I love preparing for the games. I love the strategy. And that's when I fell in love with it. And I was doing radio at Davidson at the time, and they fired their coach and hired Bob McKillop. And that's when Bob hired me as an assistant coach.
Got it. Wow. So how long were you with the Sonics?
Just one
season.
one summer.
Gotcha. Well, they were always successful. I played for the Royals, which came along a little bit, maybe a year or two after that, or maybe they were there then. Tried out for the Sonics, didn't make the Sonics. It's all right, though. Thad was a senior when I was a sophomore. God, all those guys. Oshua Benjamin. Remember that guy?
Woo! I tried to recruit Oshua. He went to state.
Yeah.
I was at Kansas at the time.
God, he could play.
Concord High School.
And Stackhouse, like all those guys were the those Carolina guys. Anyway, all right, so then Davidson and then Kansas.
Mm-hmm. Kansas for 7 years.
Under Roy.
Yeah. Went to Final Four my first year. Played North Carolina in 1993 in the semis. Carolina wins the national championship against Michigan.
Yep.
So my first year at Kansas, I'm in the Superdome where I won the national championship. On a national championship team.
That's right.
11 years later.
That's right.
On the bench with Roy Williams, with Dean Smith down the sideline. That was a pretty cool experience. Although we lost, that wasn't cool.
You did lose,
but that was a great North Carolina team.
Yeah. Yeah.
With Eric Montross, God rest his soul.
Yeah. Lynch, Reese,
Derek
Phelps,
and Williams.
Yeah. Golly. All right, and then onward to Notre Dame for a head coaching job for one season, and then you come to Carolina, your alma mater, for the big head coaching job.
Yeah.
And I know a little bit about this experience, but I assume this might be more that middle pivotal point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. So I get my first head coaching job at Notre Dame. You know, who does that, right? But that's when you have the pedigree of a Dean Smith and Roy Williams. I had some coaching opportunities I turned down, and that one, Notre Dame, was obviously a great fit. Irish Catholic kid from New York. I remember walking on campus the day of my press conference, and my parents, I flew them in, and my mother grabbed my arm, and she looked at the Golden Dome, and she said, you know, Matthew, if you can't be a Catholic priest, being the head coach of Notre Dame is a close second. And she meant it. I thought I'd be there forever. We had a great year. And then Bill Guthridge resigns, and everyone thought Roy Williams was going to take the job, and Roy turned it down. And then Coach Smith called me to, I remember calling him actually from vacation. I said, hey, when Roy takes the job, Coach Williams takes the job, if Kansas calls me, where Coach Smith was an alum and I'd worked there for 7 years, what should I do? I was just trying to prepare, right? Coaches prepare. What if they go zone? What if your best player fouls out? What if they call me? Should I stay at Notre Dame, or should I consider Kansas? And he said, well, it's not a done deal here yet with Roy. You're on the short list. Wow. And I remember telling him, oh, that's a no-brainer. Like, that's never going to happen. Like, I can't even believe my name's mentioned for the head coaching position in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And then, like 10 days later, I'm in his office, and he's offering me the job. And he's saying, can you take it? And I said, well, I got to talk to my wife. And he said, typical Coach Smith, he said, well, just a week ago, you said it was a no-brainer.
Right. The memory.
I said, I didn't realize I was really a candidate until now. So, yeah.
So that's a big deal.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
I mean,
that's an understatement, knowing what you know.
Work for McKillop, head coach at Notre Dame, all great things, but holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so I remember flying back on a private plane to South Bend with my wife saying, having great options is a burden. It's a lot easier when you don't have options.
Sure.
Everyone wants the options. Oh, man, I would love to. No, it's a burden.
Yeah.
So I'm on a private plane flying back to South Bend from Chapel Hill.
Champagne problems is what we like to call those.
Yeah, there we go.
Those burdens.
Yeah. And I remember looking at my wife saying, I could be the head coach at North Carolina, or I could be the head coach at Notre Dame. So each day I'm flip-flopping. And my wife would call a friend of mine who was associated with the University of North Carolina, and according to what clothes I slept in the night before and what I wore down to the breakfast table, like, oh, he's wearing his Notre Dame shorts. And the next day, he's wearing his Carolina shorts.
Oh, God. Here
Yeah.
we go.
And I remember Michael Jordan called me and said, you know, if you don't take this job, Coach Smith is going to hire Rick Majerus. And
Non-Tar Heel?
non-Tar Heel,
Yeah.
who was the head coach at Utah at the time. Good friends with George Karl. And when I heard that, and Coach Smith is so good, like this is why he was one, you know, he's a smart man. He wasn't just a good basketball coach, he was a smart man. He knew what buttons to push on me.
Mm-hmm.
He knew I was loyal to Chapel Hill, and he knew if I heard that, I would, that's not happening. We can't have a non-family member coaching.
Take one for the team.
So when he said that, that's when I decided to leave Notre Dame to take the job in North Carolina. But in the meantime, I remember looking for a sign, right? We look for signs.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going to the grotto at Notre Dame's campus. And if you ever get the chance to go to Notre Dame, visit this beautiful campus. And there's this grotto where they have all these candles, and you know, kneel and pray. And so I light a candle and I'm praying, like, God, give me a vision, help me make this decision, this burden. And get up off my knees, and I go to Walmart. And I'm walking in Walmart, and I turn aisle, and I see this guy turn the corner. He's walking towards me wearing a North Carolina sweatshirt.
In South Bend.
That's the sign.
There's the sign.
Made it easy. Hey, honey, we're going to Chapel Hill.
Decision
I just
made.
saw a guy in Walmart wearing a Carolina
He's
shirt.
buying a hose or
I
something.
prayed for a sign. God gave me a sign.
Oh, that's so good. God, that's good.
Yeah.
Love it. I can't believe you were toying with it. I get it. Head coach at Notre Dame. You just planted your roots. Tough decision.
Yeah, they offered me a 10-year contract at like $12 million.
Yeah.
It's actually a better contract than I got at North Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I could make my own way. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, looking back, had I stayed, I might have still be at Notre Dame.
Sure.
Or I might have been more prepared if and when North Carolina ever opened up again.
Right.
Like, let's say Roy Williams did take the job, and I was at Notre Dame that whole time, and Roy just retired 2 or 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would have been 60. Seasoned at Notre Dame, and made an easier transition, more mature, more experienced, to become the head coach at North Carolina, as opposed to being inexperienced and lacking in a lot of areas, really unprepared for that job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think big reason I failed at it.
Yeah. Well, what do you think it was? You'd lived in basketball the majority of your life. You've had a tremendous track record of coaches.
Mm-hmm.
What was it?
Well, I think I talk in the book Rebound, From Pain to Passion, that the 6 no's of leadership, KNOWS. And I made up this name, Stevitt. Stevitt was this 7-footer I recruited from Lithuania. And you got to know yourself. You got to know your team. You got to know your environment. You got to know your vision. You got to know your industry, and you got to mine for the truth.
Stevitt.
So I didn't know myself. So your biggest strength is your biggest weakness. I was 30. Was this 2000? So I was 38.
Head coaching job at Carolina at 38.
With 1 year head coaching experience.
Right.
And, you know, some people, you know, handle those situations. Your biggest strength's your biggest weakness. My biggest strength, as I look at, I'm an assessment junkie, like DISC assessment, Myers-Briggs, Culture Index. And basically, I remember taking the Myers-Briggs assessment after I got let go at North Carolina when I went on this leadership journey. And this lady, Carol Weber at UVA, was the executive coach I worked with, and she said, you're an ENTJ. And I jokingly say, I've been called a lot of four-letter words before, especially in Cameron Indoor Stadium, but not ENTJ. She said only 2% of the population are ENTJs. And I'm thinking, this is like 2 or 3 months after I got let go at North Carolina. I start sitting up like, I'm a badass. Like, they just fired an elite coach. And she was like, no, you don't get it. That means 98% of the population don't think like you think. And I went, oh, my God. So I thought everyone should think like I think. Right? Because I was a winner. We won championships. I got to play. I was tough. I was competitive. Well, your biggest strength's your biggest weakness. I was intense. I was driven. I was competitive. Sometimes I was too intense. I was too driven. I was too competitive. And didn't have maybe the empathy for players that weren't like me or people that weren't like me. I discounted them. That's very disrespectful. I didn't operate out of some core values. We had core values at North Carolina: play hard, play smart, play together. But I'm talking about core values like now I have RTCP: respect, trust, commitment, positivity. So treat everybody with respect. Develop trust, be committed to the team, the growth, the individual, and do it in a positive manner. And I got immediate results, but I wasn't able to sustain it because I was really impactful in the short term. I could change a culture. I could drive a culture. And we went from, we were ranked #1 in the country. We won the regular season ACC my first year. I was voted National Coach of the Year. The next year, we were 8-20, the worst record in Carolina basketball history.
Right.
I knew what was in the pipeline, the funnel. We were going to be void of some talent.
Sure.
And
you were playing with guts recruits. And
then we had to rebuild, and we did. We started 3 freshmen, 2 sophomores. We go from not being ranked to beating Kansas in the Garden, being ranked 12th in the country. But then Sean May broke his foot, who was my starting center and a freshman, who's now an assistant at North Carolina. And, there's also politics involved. And that's where I talk about Stevitt. Know yourself, know your team, which is know your players, your assistant coaches, secretaries, know your environment. See, the environment at Notre Dame, they wanted change. They embraced change. So when I made moves, they were like, yeah, let's do it. You know better than we do.
Right.
So when I go to North Carolina and Dean Smith and Bill Guthridge are still in the building, and there's 4 secretaries that have been there an average of 20 years each.
Not looking for change.
They don't want change.
Yeah.
But I got the job July 11th, okay? We're recording this now on the 31st. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens in July? Because a lot of people don't realize it, but that's the busiest recruiting month of the year. So I got the job July 11th, right? Not in March or April like most coaches do. There's a whole nother why behind why the change happened in the end of June. But once Roy didn't take the job, now I was like, oh my gosh. So I get the job. I got to go on the road recruiting, and I wasn't going to let my staff, out in the streets. So I brought my staff with me and didn't retain the previous staff at North Carolina.
Yep.
And that was a big slight against the Carolina family. And so the secretaries didn't like it. Coach Smith didn't like it. Bill Guthridge didn't like it. Former players didn't like it. But I asked the athletic director, I said, listen, I'll take the job, but I got to bring my assistants with me. Is that okay? He said, yes. I should have asked Dean Smith.
Right.
And I should have figured something out. Yeah, I should have figured something out. But when your head is spinning and you're thinking, I got to hit the ground running, I should have kept the staff in place and brought my staff at a reduced role.
Sure.
But
in hindsight.
Yeah, in hindsight. And said, all right, we're going to work together and we need a bigger budget because I need to bring these guys on. If I can't bring them, I must stay at Notre Dame.
So bringing these guys and this perceived slight put you a little bit more on the criticism podium, right?
Well, the
Like,
only
you better
the
do
only
good.
way you can overcome that is massive success.
Sure.
Because
that's what I mean.
once there is a chink, in the armor, once there is some downturn, now they can pounce on you.
Yeah.
And they did. And that came in the 8-20 season, which, again, I told the athletic director, I said, my first year we're going to be good because we have some good holdovers. My second year we're not because I knew what was in the pipeline. My third year we're going to be rebuilding. Are you tough enough to get through that with me? And I got yes, 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 yes. Well, I was being recruited at the time,
Sure.
And
Tell
Coach
you what you
Smith
wanna
said to
hear.
me, it's your program, run it how you see fit. Coach Smith never lied to us, right? He was like a father figure to all of us. So I'm like, okay, he said I could run it how I see fit. So I see fit to bring my staff with me.
Yeah.
I see fit to, raise the level of intensity in the program because it had dropped. We were considered a soft program.
Yeah.
We didn't draw charges. We didn't dive on loose balls. We didn't hit people. We didn't lift weights regularly. So I was going to change that and not pamper the players because their reputation was, players, they were pampered. And that was the Duke image of the Duke players back in the 70s, in the early 80s. They were pampered. And we were soft, wine and cheese. The whole,
Yeah.
No, I was going to change that. We're
Yeah.
going to be tough. We're going to be in shape, and we're going to knock people over. And, again, we went on an 18-game winning streak, I think it was, and ranked number 1 in the country once Ronald Curry and Julius Peppers joined the team. Because we lacked some point guard play and depth in the front court.
Your third season?
First year.
Oh, first year. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So then, all right. Well, we don't have to go too much into that, but just to put a cap on it, your third season, it's combined perceived lack of success, rebuilding year. They're jumping on it due to possible feeling slighted, and then also your personality, your coaching style, didn't match with these kids.
Yeah.
And so all that kind of
coaching
came to a head, huh?
It's funny. I've certainly, looking back, I would have not been as intense. I would have channeled it in a different way. But when you say these kids, I don't blame the players. Because Coach K, like Jay Billis and I are friends, and he would talk about how Coach K coached him. And, like when he'd hear stories about me, he's like, what? Like, that's nothing. You should have seen,
Right.
And
right.
so,
Bobby Knight.
Tom Izzo,
Yeah.
like Jim Calhoun, Bobby Knight, Tom Izzo, Doug Wojcik, who worked for me at North Carolina, works for Tom Izzo. And he's like,
you have no idea.
you have no idea. But when they want you out, they'll find reason.
Sure.
And when players have are enabled, when people are enabled, right? We talk about addiction.
Yeah.
So if we have enablers in our lives, we're going to continue to drink and do bad things. So when a player would complain and an adult would welcome the complaint and feed the fire, then I lost.
Complain.
Then I lost. And so we started off winning my last year, but then when Sean May broke his foot and we didn't make the NCAA tournament, we still won 19 games. But there was now an opportunity.
Yeah.
So, and that was a very tough time, man. Tough time. I felt betrayed. I felt like, listen, I left this good situation at Notre Dame to, help the family, and now the family's
turned.
Shot me in the back of the head like a scene in The Godfather. I was out in the lake rowing a boat, and I got a bullet in the back of the head. So Alfredo.
Yeah.
And so that was very traumatic. Really led to depression. that I've dealt with pretty much the whole time since then. It's gotten better, but like heavy depression. For 2 years, I was kind of America's guest. It was okay. I was doing TV and got to play golf wherever I wanted. And then I got back into coaching, and I took this job at FAU. Once the press conference was over, the depression hit. Because I remember going into the office to pull, I didn't have a secretary, pulled out a drawer to get a pen to write a note, and the drawer broke and fell on my lap. Pens went flying. And I remember looking out the window and starting to cry, like, how the hell did I end up here?
Mm-hmm.
And didn't feel like getting out of bed. Had some bad thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Thought about quitting. My wife wouldn't let me quit. She's like, you can't do that to your assistants. And got through it, ended up enjoying the year. That led us to SMU in Dallas, was there for 6. But, you know, I mean, there's so many triggers after that, like players, coaches getting jobs, and I'm like, oh, I was a better coach than that guy. I beat that guy, you know.
Right.
And then now coaches getting these salaries from, you know, $4 to $7 million, you know, and I'm like, golly, like if I would have gotten fired now, I would never have to work again.
Right.
You know, and so there's a lot of triggers, and probably one of the many blessings is that I wasn't drinking at the time.
Absolutely.
And, you know, it brought me.
Did you ever think about it?
No. No. But it brought me closer to my wife, my kids, and God.
Yeah.
And I think that God, you know, talk about like, I hope to get to heaven, and when I get up there, I'm going to say, you know, God, one question before this next guy.
Right.
Like
The next room.
2003, coaching in North Carolina. You hit me over the head pretty hard. I think I know why. You know, I was getting out over my skis too much, too soon, didn't handle it well, and he'll just go like this. Yes, my son. Next. So, you know, it's your life's impacted by the people you meet, the books you read, and the trauma in your life. That's traumatic. All right, now you have a choice.
Yeah.
You have a choice. What are you going to do with that trauma? You could get bitter or you can get better. And as an athlete, we are conditioned as a coach to try to get better. We watch the film and try to improve. So I went and I did, after I got let go in North Carolina, I had 360s done. I worked with an executive coach, Jerry Bell. I met with Dr. Carol Weber. I studied at Wharton, took a class up there. I wanted to, all right, how can I get better? They say I'm not a good leader. How can I get better? And I remember taking this class up at Wharton, taught by Fran Johnston, who became an executive coach for me. And it was on emotional intelligence.
Mm.
And we were reading out of Primal Leadership, I think it's The Art of Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. And as she's reading this, we're studying, I'm like, oh my God, like if I would have known this before I was a head coach, I would have been a better head coach. And so that goes back to the Stevitt, knowing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a huge blind spot. You know, we all have blind spots, just how big they are. And mine has shrunk. I still have a blind spot, but it's shrunk over the years. That's wisdom. And so my motto is learn and grow, like continue to learn and grow. So, you know, I try to get better and learn from it. And then as the more I learned about it, the more passionate I became about leadership. And that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, Rebound, because I want to help people avoid the landmines I stepped on.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we do as players. That's what we do as coaches. You know, what did you do what did you become a good player? You know, you always wanted a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
you wanted
that wisdom.
You wanted that wisdom. As a kid in 6th grade, I wanted to know the 8th graders were doing. As an 8th grader, I wanted to know what the high school players were doing. As a high school player, I wanted to work out with the college players. I wanted to go to the best camps to be taught by the best coaches and play against the best competition. And so now I'm an executive coach and do keynote talks and have a TV show because I want you to avoid the landmines I stepped on.
Yeah. All right. That is all such gold. Such gold. I mean, my mind just thinks about, I'm a visual person, and I just have this visual in my mind, and I think about all the successes you've had. And there are some huge ones, huge successes. And then there's this, interestingly, on the other side of the hill, and I wouldn't call them failures, but traumatic, pivotal moments.
Right.
The not making it to the NBA.
Yeah.
The sobriety.
Yeah.
The resigning from Chapel Hill. Like, man, those are heavy things as well.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody today. You played basketball and you wanted exposure as a young player. High school players want exposure, and I say, and just be careful, you might get exposed. Right?
Yeah.
And so, there is risk in going for it.
Absolutely.
Right? So, I make a statement, I want to play college basketball in North Carolina, and I want to play in the NBA, and people are like, oh, he's not good enough. And then you're putting yourself out there, so then to criticism. Okay? I didn't want to be afraid of taking the North Carolina job. I remember vividly saying, I don't want to be afraid of it. I don't want to be afraid of it. I don't want to look back and say I was afraid of it.
Yeah.
So I took it. Now you can say, oh, it would have been easier to stay. Yeah, it would have been. It was safe. But what did you learn? Nelson Mandela, one of my favorite quotes, said, I never lose. I either win or I learn.
Yeah.
I love that quote.
Yeah.
So I didn't lose. I learned.
Yeah.
I got better. I'm a better coach. If I was coaching at North Carolina today, I'd be a pretty damn good coach. Because I would understand myself better, my team, my environment. I would understand all those things better, and I would be able to mine for the truth better.
Yeah.
I wasn't good at mining for the truth. And also realize now, my blind spots, it's impatience, I'm intense, I'm driven. That's a good thing. I think we all should wear doggy collars, like, in the electric fence. And when we feel like we're getting to the emotional edge, zap and back away, like intense, too intense, driven, too driven, competitive, too competitive, too much of a good thing's a bad thing. So having that self-awareness to know you're getting close to the electrical fence.
Yeah. Interesting. There's part of what stands out, and we'll wrap here in a second. You think about these times where you achieve so much, and the simple fact that no time has ever stayed on top. You're always going to peak and then come back down. But if there's a way to go into the top knowing that, then there's less of a on the other side of it.
Right.
And that's wisdom.
Yeah, that's wisdom. That's balance. I think it's really important to have Christ in your life because then there's that balance, and you identify as a Christian versus identify as a basketball player or as a businessman, right? So when you have those roller coaster moments, Christianity's right here, man. Like, and I'm a Christian. I'm not a businessman. I'm a Christian. I'm not a basketball player. I'm not a basketball coach. I lead with that. Easier said than done because you know what? We are flawed as human beings.
And we have
emotions.
We
like, I like getting on the court in front of 63,000 people.
Yeah.
And throwing no looks to James Worthy. I like doing that. I like the roar of the crowd. So you get intoxicated with that. So how can you keep some kind of balance. That's why I am so impressed with guys like Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Like, he is such a nice guy. And I've never met Steph. I just know him through Bob McKillop. And, just seems to be so balanced and have balance in his life. Never gets too high, never gets too low. And, like, I admire people that have that and are very competitive and excellent at what they do, but yet it's not how they identify as themselves. They identify as a father, a Christian. I wish I was more like that. I think that's a really cool quality to have. I yearn for that and hope to accomplish that. Confidence, confidence with humility equals class. So you can be confident. Like, I'm going to beat your ass, in the court.
I am.
Right.
Yeah.
But do it with humility that equals class, right? As opposed to, being that jerk.
Intimidator.
Yeah. Like, okay, yeah, whatever, and just, I got you. I'm going to take care of business. And then shake your hand afterwards and just, and then be able to go, pick your kids up, have dinner with your wife, take out the trash, go to church, and then, like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I admire people like that.
Two more things. Do you think when you were going through some of the toughest times in your life that Christ or your relationship with with God, helped you through that? Or are you looking back and saying, that would have helped me, therefore I am that way now?
Oh, good question. I think it brought me to my knees to pray.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
So you get knocked down, you're on your knees.
Desperation.
I'm here. Like, you. All right. I might as well pray. Like, God, why? And I think that, that brought me closer to God.
Yeah.
Through the trauma, through the setbacks. For sure. Yeah.
Cool.
And to my wife and later on my children.
Yeah. Well, so that leads to my last question, which would be, as if you were, I want to frame this right, because I think about it as a parent myself with a 14-year-old and the things that I try to teach my daughter. How would you say to someone, and I think we can usually use our kids as an example, how and what would you say to someone who's going through one of those experiences that is a result of either a bad decision or a behavioral thing or just maybe immaturity or something that led to a consequence that they are just suffering with right now? What do you? Because essentially it feels like a mistake,
right?
A failure. I fucked up. What do you say to that young person who's going through that?
Yeah. If this is the worst thing that happens in your life, you've lived a charmed life. This is big in the moment, but no one really cares. A friend of mine wrote a book or is writing a book. I don't know if it's out yet, called "Kill Your Ego," and we think people care about us more than they do. Like, okay, they'll care for a minute. Oh yeah, look at her, but then they move on.
Yeah.
And so your life is nothing but a series of decisions and dealing with the consequences. The better decisions you make, the better your life will be. But we are human. We are flawed. We will make mistakes. And when we do, there are consequences. Sometimes the consequences aren't as severe because of luck or divine intervention. But as I said about Nelson Mandela, I never lose, I either win or I learn. Okay, it's a learning opportunity. I feel sorry for these young people because they are dealing with social media, and they're comparing their everyday to someone else's highlight film. And you look at Michael Jordan's highlights; he never missed a shot.
Right.
He dunked on everything, but you can make clips. And Michael has a quote about it: "I missed 9,000 shots. I missed 9,000 shots, therefore I succeeded," or something like that.
Yeah.
Like you've got to live with the mistakes and just learn from them. And that's where the balance is. Don't get too high, don't get too low. But, if you're an emotional young person, you're going to think it's the end of the world. But you look back and you're like, nah, just another, not that big of a deal, So, just carry on, right? Like Winston Churchill said, right?
Yeah. Manage expectations as best as possible. And then, you like you said, the social media stuff, people's expectations are just so unrealistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coach.
Thank you very much, Robbie. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Yes.
I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.